to the Three Corners of Horror. This week we're going to do our first movie review of a film that I happened to stumble upon and I introduced to Rick and Lindsay, Incident of A Ghostland. Now this movie is about a mother, Pauline, takes her two daughters, Beth and Vera, cross country to go visit their aunt's house, stay there. And, well, on their way there, they basically, they meet two unlikely characters, which kind of change their lives. Now, this piece is gonna have a lot of spoiler alerts. So if you didn't watch the film, please go watch it first. If you watched it, it's a masterpiece of mine. And also, if you had anything that happened to you as a child, this movie might not be for you because it's very disturbing in certain aspects. So, first impressions.
My first impression, I was absolutely blown away, to be honest. I mean, right off the bat, it really gets into it. There's no slow build-up. You start watching and it just goes, and then it continues to go through the entire movie, and twist, 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 which I thoroughly enjoy that. I love when it keeps my attention. Right from the get-go, you start to figure out personalities with the characters, and you start to kind of root for certain people right off the bat, and you question other ones, like the people they ran into. You're kind of like, what's their motive here? And you learn very quickly what their motive is here. I was really impressed with it. I think from beginning to end, the acting was phenomenal, and honestly, I didn't even know a lot of these actors. I mean, I know it's a Canadian film, so I'm not super familiar with all Canadian actors, but I mean, for people that were unknown to me in the horror community, I think they nailed their parts, like, phenomenally.
Yeah, you, Rick?
Yeah, this is a film that the same director from Martyrs did this film, so has a lot of those same personal touches to him, and like she said, the movie doesn't really play the subtlety at all. Like, I mean, the movie's loud and in your face right from the jump. And a lot of those scenes, it makes you wonder, wow, like, they get right into it, and then you keep thinking to yourself, this can't be the whole run. The runtime can be just them just already in the middle of all this. And there's not that many characters to begin with, too.
Right.
They give you three central characters to really focus on. Then they introduce, the two antagonists. And then from there, like, within not even 10 minutes, like she had mentioned, you're already knee deep into everything. And then, I mean, at first, I'm not gonna lie, like when I was watching it, I know you guys saw it before me, so I went in with hype already, and I was kind of feeling like, oh man, like, I guess they're trying too hard, or they're going too fast for me, But then once you get to the main twist of the film, everything comes back, Like, I remember watching some of the scenes and thinking some of the dialogue was kind of shallow, not realistic at all, and too in your face with the foreshadowing. But once again you get into the meat of the movie, that was all done by design, And,
Yep.
And I think that alone is it's really interesting, because when the director made this film, you could tell he made it from, like, not personal experience, but definitely from, like, within his mind, and he just brought it out there. I loved it.
Yeah, the interesting part with this is, like, within the first minutes, like you were saying, we're introduced to the characters off the bat. We're introduced to Pauline, the mother, who obviously you could tell Beth is her favorite.
Yes.
You're introduced as Beth, who's the younger sister, who's actually a writer and is in love with basically the style of Lovecraft. And she's a horror writer, which is even more amazing. And then you had the older sister, Vera, who's your typical older sister, always talking bad about the younger sister. But, like, the Beth character, I thought she was just amazing. Both of them, the child and the adult.
Well, and I think it's important to state that I think the reason why, Beth was the favorite was because it was very clear from the start that Beth had anxiety issues, and Vera was seen more as she can handle herself, so the mom had to overcompensate and take care of Beth. I think that's where it comes in. I don't know if I agree. I think they had a definite connection, but I think it was constantly trying to make sure her daughter was going to be okay, because she mentally wasn't 100%.
What you thought?
At the end of the film, when you really think about it, incident in a ghost land, you may think it's a ghost story, but it really isn't. I think the movie is definitely more about trauma and how trauma affects everyone a little bit differently. Like you mentioned, like the Beth character and Vera being the stronger of the two mentally. She's the one that never lost like that sight of what's going on. You know, Beth quickly got into the situation and quickly just went into her fantasy land and just tried to project a nicer life when exactly that wasn't what was going on at all. She was the one that needed the help to begin with, wasn't Vera. So again, it kind of throws it for a loop. And now, if you want to talk about the twist right now, in case you guys are kind of confused with what we're talking about, go right ahead.
Well, the twist is as you're watching it, you're
now again. I'm sorry to interrupt. If you haven't seen the movie, please watch it before we just get into it, because this is what makes the movie right here.
When you're watching it, basically, the two antagonists come into the house. Immediately, they call him the Fat Man. He assaults the mother, takes the mother out, and drags the two daughters into the basement. And as it goes, I mean, there's a disturbing scene where basically this character had a fetish for basically smelling crotches and
dolls in general.
And then basically not only that, but the Beth character gets her period.
Yeah.
Which is a monumental moment in a woman as far as puberty going, but then it's treated differently by this character, the Fat Man, because he basically tosses it to the side and attacks Vera. But when you're continuing watching it, you get it as it was a flashback, a dream that Beth was having, which as it continues going now, it flips to an adult Beth, which as it keeps going, you realize there's something amiss.
Sit back and enjoy Chicago's classical music station.
Especially since adult Beth, just to clarify a little bit better so you can understand what her life is like as an adult. Now, we mentioned before, Beth was kind of the one that wasn't really stable and Vera was the strong one. Well, in her mind as an adult, they all survived this incident and she is married now with a son, and Vera is an absolute mess, lives with the mother, and the mother has to pretty much lock her in the basement because she constantly hurts herself and is constantly putting herself in positions where she's literally, I mean, they did an awesome job with the makeup because they got beat to crap and you can visually see it in all the movies. So I want to make that clear that her adult life, she's perfectly normal compared to her sister. And when we come to find out that this is all in her mind and she's made this scenario up, Vera's still the strong one and trying to bring her back to reality because they still need to survive this situation. They're still kids in reality. They're still kids and they're still in this basement.
And that was the amazing twist, was the fact that as you're watching, you think that they're grown. And reality is they're still in the basement. They're still a child. Best character, she became the writer she always wanted to become, which when she realizes she's still in the basement, you start seeing like certain aspects of, like she was interviewed earlier, by a famous woman about her writing about the incident of Ghostland book that she wrote.
Tonight's guest has been described as a master of horror. Her latest book is Incident in a Ghostland. It's only been out 2 weeks and already it's topping the bestseller lists. We're very lucky to have her, as she very rarely makes television appearances. Elizabeth Keller.
And you see the lady's picture on the wall.
The picture on the wall, the painting of her husband and the painting of her son. And in the visual, she was saying, why he never wants to take his costume off. He loves that costume. But in reality, it's because in the painting, the little boy is in that costume. in the painting at all times.
And to go back to in the beginning when, Vera was talking about this to her mom, like Beth already was creating these scenarios in her head way before this even happened. And the fact that when you go into that flashback world, that's when I started to lose me in a sense, only because, like I said, like Beth had this perfect life, and the way her and her husband were talking, and she's so successful, it was too on the nose. And then when she goes back, she gets a call from Beth that she's in trouble to come back home. She goes back home, and to find her and her mom still living in the same house.
Right. It's funny because, like, me and my mom said the same thing. Like, why would you ever stay?
Why would you live
if
there?
you survive that, why would you stay there?
And then when when Beth runs into her mom too, and as soon as I saw the mom, I'm like, she looks the same.
Yeah.
She hasn't aged a bit. And again, Beth says the same thing. She reiterates that line. I'm like, oh, okay, this is too on the nose right now. But then again, it's all in her head. This is the world she's creating here.
To survive.
Because in her head, her mom was the hero. Her mom killed the two killers. She protected her daughters. But when you get into that part of the film, you realize that, wait a minute, something's not right.
I didn't even know she is the phone.
Everything's okay.
Yeah, she's resting. I've missed you so much. You look beautiful.
You haven't changed at all.
Oh, well.
You haven't.
Yeah, only that. I mean, it kind of struck me as weird. The fact that here you have Vera in the basement, basically living in a padded room, a made padded room by her mother, locked, chained.
In the same room she was getting raped in as well. So
Yeah.
Which is, you're sitting there like, wow. And then when it took basically Beth to feel an assault because she woke up with her eyes swollen to realize something is wrong. And because remember, the what happened earlier is Vera had basically an incident where she would look like she was getting beaten by a ghost. And you actually thought it was a ghost to the point where her fingers were really
that
broken.
was the giveaway right there, yeah.
And the mother goes and she's like, oh, I'm going to call the ambulance. I'm going to go to the road. And you're sitting there like, wow, like 4 hours passed, 5 hours passed.
Yeah. Where's this ambulance?
Where's the ambulance? And then when Beth wakes up is where she's has her eyes swollen.
Yep.
Looking for mom, and mom's nowhere to be seen. I mean, I thought like you were saying, some of the twists were kind of obvious a little bit, but they were basically done so well.
Yeah.
That even if it was obvious, it was still shock.
They're obvious. I think they're by design.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And Pascal Laguerre was basically the screenwriter and director. He did Martyrs, like you were saying. He did Brotherhood of the Wolf. He did The Tall Man, which I haven't seen yet. Now I'm interested in because for me, the way he wrote and directed this.
This is a director that he don't just direct movies. Like when he did Martyrs, he was on the verge of suicide at that time. And to get through that emotional struggle, that's the movie he put out there. That's his way of therapy.
Yeah.
So this guy's a genius when it comes to this kind of stuff. You don't just put film on film. Everything has a purpose for it.
Right.
Now let's talk about the antagonist.
Yeah.
Because you get no backstory.
Nope.
The only story you get is where she goes. They're at the gas station. She's in the store. She's reading a newspaper clipping, basically saying two people are going into the house, killing the parents and staying with the daughters. And then, lo and behold, here they are in the house. And I thought it was just like...
Let's not forget that they're in a candy truck.
They are in a candy truck.
A creepy candy truck.
What the fuck?
But the fact that the characters, I mean, like a lot of things have been said, and this is a movie I'm surprised didn't get a lot of heat for it, because a lot of the demented characters have some kind of mental instability, and they both did. I mean, he had a cleft in his mouth, but like the first time you saw him, what was your reaction?
Well, he was like a big child essentially.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't speak. He kind of grunted and he acted really childlike. you know, his partner, I don't know if it's his guardian or who that was, you know, cross-dresser,
Yeah.
and we don't know the real brunt of those two characters. Now, we know those are characters, like, are they just a figment of, like, Beth's imagination? Did she just write them into the story? Did it really happen? Like, we still don't even know any of these things.
It's
and
true.
again, it's by design. It's made, like, us three saw it, and us three probably got 3 different ways to interpret
It's true.
what's going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
A lot of movies don't do that anymore. That's like, it's not something you just watch. Oh, you gotta really watch it a few times, and then after you know what happens, you go back and you see all those little things you got missed. That's kind of telling you, okay, the answers were right there from the very beginning of the movie, and everything comes back and it ties up at the end.
Now, which of the two characters did really like affect you as far as wow, this one's disturbing?
So for me, honestly, the bigger the fat man
The fat man.
did not freak me out as much
No, me neither.
as
No.
the skinny guy. It's kind of funny. I told Jose this at work the other day. Did you ever see Chitty Chitty Bang Bang?
No.
Okay. Well, there's the child catcher. And he reminds me a little bit of the child catcher as far as how creepy he is. And like visually, I mean, there's something about he's like this big. He's super skinny, right?
Yeah.
And he's got this black wig and he's wearing this dress. And he doesn't talk through the whole thing. And he is his face, that scene when so there is a part where they get out, they escape, and they run and they run and they come across cops. And these cops come and they're like, oh, stay right there. And of course, as you can predict, the skinny guy comes up and catches up with them. And the face he makes when he shoots that cop, the camera angle is like right at him. And he's like, with this wig and this makeup, and that was terrifying.
The cinematography is excellent.
Excellent. Oh man, that part alone, because you're like rooting for them. You're like, yes, they got out, and then that happens, and you're like, no. And he genuinely is creepy, and that just shows you for like you said before. I do think he whoever he is was the caretaker, because he was the one kind of. He was driving the truck. He was the one making sure that the girls were in the room for the guy. The doll was all set.
And never said a word. Neither of these two characters did.
Right.
And the creep factor you mentioned, it's all over the place. Again, it makes you wonder: is this real? When they go to the house in the beginning, like, who's gonna move into a house like that?
That doll that was behind the mirror.
Fun?
Yes.
What was that? Who puts that in their house?
Again.
Okay, so like the mirror opens up and this doll comes up with the eyes light up and it's like, ah.
Again, she's a horror writer.
Yeah.
And immediately you're hit with all these horror cliches, like the jump scares, the dolls, and we're like, okay, it feels very familiar. But again, it's coming from a young girl who this is the kind of stuff she's growing up with. This is the kind of stuff she's writing about, as you see in the beginning. So everything is like made again by design. That's the brilliance of this film.
Well, what I also like about it is as it goes, like once you realize that she made up this world with, a child and a husband and famous writer, that even after the scene with the cops, she shuts out again.
Yeah.
And she goes back to
when
world.
she's in the truck, you see her, the camera visual is her like going, Vera's like, stay with me.
She breaks the fourth wall, looks directly at you, and she tells you, I write stories. And that ending, there was no other way to end this movie than with that one line.
For me, it's as a writer, I mean, I think the way it was written, the way it was told, it could have been ruined easily at any moment.
Yes.
And it still kept you like watching. And the fact is that certain scenes were just so disturbing. You're sitting there like, am I really watching this? Is this really happening? And for example, like the one knock I would have is those two cops were just like, I don't know if they were rookies.
I know, they were not, they're like, stay right there. Like, no, like, do you see how beat up they are? They're obviously running from something.
This movie builds so much tension. Like, for example, the scene where Beth is dressed as a doll.
Yes.
So the fat man could play with her. I mean, what did you guys think of that?
Creepy. I already didn't like the fat man, and I just felt that's the one time it made me kind of uncomfortable. especially Vera was telling her, "Don't be scared, don't cry, just." So you could see her really trying not to do that when this guy is standing there, grabs a doll, starts playing with it, pulls out the blowtorch, man, and starts like burning it slowly, and you can see it right from Beth's perspective too, and she's there, and then obviously he goes and grabs her, and I think the urination scene in this movie was probably the one thing that really got to me. Not that I was scared, but that's the one I was saying to myself, all right, it's a little too much, it's like.
But it was much.
But I liked it.
But it was realistic too. Because she's sitting there trying to talk about this. Technically, if you're talking about it, this is her first time.
Yeah.
Vera's been through this over and over again. I can't imagine the fear of you're with, not to mention those dolls around her were creepy. Okay, if you stuck me next to those dolls, I'd be scared anyway. And now you bring in this fat man in who's gonna sniff my crotch. I'm out.
Yeah,
I want nothing to do.
I liked it in the scene in the scene form, but I didn't like it in happening to her.
I agree. Yeah,
that's the one character you like. You root for that character.
You do.
Now, let's talk about one thing though. Now, the title has Ghostland, and you really don't see ghosts, but that scene where the fat man's basically prepping to assault Beth, you had incidents where basically a doll goes off, whether it laughs or whether in the closet the eyes start going crazy.
Yep.
I mean, the mother, we all know the mother passed. Do you possibly think that the mother did that? And basically, the mother was probably the ghost that was in the house?
Always a possibility, especially the fact that near the end of the film, you kind of you see Pauline, in the window pointing at the typewriter.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Her presence is definitely felt throughout the film, especially, from Beth's point of view.
Bravo, Vera. Ça, c'est vraiment la grande classe.
No French, Mom.
We're going to give it a rating. We're going to do it using dolls. Best of 5.
Mine's 5 out of 5. The emotion that I felt from beginning to end, I felt every emotion, and I love that about a movie, and I just was totally drawn in right from the beginning.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5 dolls. My bar is kind of high, but I think this movie definitely it sticks with you for a long time, and there really is no comedy in this film. In fact, the only time I ever laughed a little bit was there was a Rob Zombie reference in the film, and then immediately right after that, it was a shot of a clown. Definitely was. It's a coincidence, but I just found it. But yeah, 4 out of 5 for me. If you were to go see it, definitely check it out.
For me, because it was one of these I felt like I stumbled upon, and I like horror movies that are written well. I mean, this for me, especially realistic type horror. And as far as comedy, I thought one scene was where she flipped off the candy truck. And then later on, he flips her off while he's getting pulled to the basement. It wasn't funny, but you're like, oh, payback. But for me, I kind of give it a 5 out of 5. I might actually put it as one of my top 10 all time. I just think the movie is so great, and I became a fan of Pascal Agier. So I'm definitely going to start checking out his stuff. But yeah, the Incident of Ghostland, watch it.
Just so you know, to make it clear, because you want to watch it, it is on Shudder, and I believe it's on Amazon as well, but you might have to rent it from Amazon, and then it's on DVD. Yeah,
it's a good movie. Watch it. You'll enjoy it. I know we enjoyed it. Next week, we're going to talk about dinner scenes in horror movies, because, hey, it's Thanksgiving. Who doesn't want to talk about dinner? See you guys next week. JR.
Lindsay.
Rick.
3 Corners of Horror.